name an argument for me?
People say it's just like
Sorry?
it's just like another marketing tool to differentiate a product and make it more expensive.
Fair
Like
enough.
you
That's true.
sell bananas and
True.
just brand it as organic.
So just one more type of spin, right? Okay. That's not the first argument that people tell you. The first thing they'll say is, you can't feed the world with organic food. They say that's what I like to call the productivity argument. Now this productivity argument is extremely flawed because there has been enough research to say that it can, that calorifically organic food and organic techniques, when employed properly, can produce as much food as conventional techniques. So there's a study by Cornell University which says that. There's a study by several other agencies that says that. But the contention is that initially at least you will have better result with. So people will keep on giving you this argument. It's not true. And you can find a lot of research that says just that. The second question is, why should India feed the world? So if you look at the current system of global food, it depends on, say, somebody in America doing things which are more productive, earn more money, they have greater salaries, and bring more to their economy than somebody in India who's farming and kind of doing it. And then the way it kind of happens is that you sit in a place like the US, perhaps, and you say that, okay, I can get a guy who it will cost less to produce food from India to send the food over, and that's the way it actually works. It's actually cheaper to send it across over here rather than do it ourselves. And so we'll do higher end work and make more money. So I don't see how that works to our interest, right? So we need to produce for ourselves. Organic farming can produce for ourselves. That productivity argument should never be in doubt. There is another, kind of argument which says there isn't enough proof that pesticides or poisons in agriculture are actually affecting our health, right? So it is what I would call the lack of scientific proof argument. Unfortunately, there are enough studies that actually say that. I gave you the example of breast milk in mothers. These are studies in India. There are studies all over the world which have said that there are different types of residues that do kind of happen in food, and those do have health implications over the long run. You're not going to find out tomorrow. Some people say it's too expensive. Like you mentioned, it's more marketing spin to differentiate the produce, and everybody's kind of charging a lot of money for it. It's just a lot of junk. Well, a lot of the costs don't come from the growing of the food, they come from the certifying of the food. So, if I grow food organically, and I tell you mine is organic, you say, show me proof. If you were sitting there in Australia and I'm sitting there in India, you're very justified in asking that question. The beauty of it is that if you consider people who are in this area and you ask them, does Victor grow organic rice or not, everybody already knows. So they already trust Victor's rice. So the beauty is that if I wasn't trying to sell globally to you in Australia, that certification won't matter, the costs would shrink considerably, and I would be able to give you affordable organic food. So that's another aspect of this too expensive thing. Then people say it requires too much labor. We've got 60%, 1.2 billion population, which knows nothing about doing anything else. Is labor really the problem in India? No, it isn't. Right? The other last argument is usually, but it's not certified. Like I said, just because it's not certified doesn't mean it isn't organic. There are a lot of systems now which actually say that farmers guarantee each other's produce. It's called a peer guarantee system, started in Brazil, going all over the world, which is saying we will certify each other. And it's a lot better than traders certifying each other, which is what the current third-party organic systems are, and saying that, wow, it's okay, it's organic. Right? So these are other systems that are coming there. Now all of these systems kind of contribute to suggesting that organic is a good option for India. But let me highlight 3-4 reasons why it's really, really good for India. First of all, what I told you, needs less water. We have a water shortage. Half of the country grows crops only in one season because there's not enough water. Therefore, organic makes sense. It creates less debt, which means less suicides, I think that's fairly clearly a benefit over the other system of agriculture. There is reduced environmental impact because you don't have runoff of poisons going into your water sources, what you drink on a daily basis. So that's the third benefit.
It's a pleasure to address a group of young people of Indian origin, looking at India with fresh eyes. I had a chance to do the same in a certain sense when I left India and lived abroad for several years. But eventually was drawn back to come and do something and return something to the country that gave me certain opportunities. I think there's a big sense that I had that I wanted to return something. So I came back and spent I'm here now for the past 11 years. And I moved from the field of pretty large software kinds of business to making spirits now. In fact, you'll see some bottles hanging around in the bar there. Those are bottles that contain products that I developed in India in a way that sort of keeps certain important principles in mind. The alcohol industry in India has been very, very stagnant for as many years as it's been around, which means 60, 70, 80 years in an organized fashion. And people have not really done anything innovative. If you think of alcohol in India, I think nothing much will come to mind other than the standard imitations of rum and whiskey and vodka and gin. India is very good at producing these imitative alcohols, which are basically just essence. So you wonder why booze is cheap in India. It's because it's just an essence. It's not even real stuff. So I moved back to India and I was working on a number of different projects, and suddenly this occurred to me that there was this one international spirit which is known as tequila. I didn't see anybody say they were from Mexico. Is there anybody in your group from Mexico or nearby? Are you all familiar with tequila? So, not everybody is nodding. Mexico? Okay. So, I was trying to source some tequila in India about 11 years ago, and I couldn't find it. I mean, it was not available because Mexico hadn't started exporting to India yet. And so I was thinking about it, as I tend to do. I mean, I'm a serial entrepreneur who comes up with a number of ideas, and I just play with them for a while. So I was playing with this idea that what is this strange international spirit that everybody knows about, but is made in just one country? Why? And I started researching it, and before long I just looked at some pictures, and I said, I've seen this plant growing in India. The agave plant. You know what the agave plant is? It's this big rosette, many multi-leaves. The leaves look like swords, they end with a sharp point. You'll see them all over India actually if you're traveling around. But most of these species have not got any value to make spirits. And when I saw the Mexican agave from which tequila is made, I said I've seen something very similar to this in India, but I couldn't remember where and how. It was during my childhood growing up. And so I did a little bit of research, and very quickly, utilizing some common sense principles, like looking at a map, for example, I drew some latitude lines across the planet and found them passing right through central India. And then I looked at that region and I said, okay, this is an elevated region, it's got rain shadow, it's got volcanic soil, it has the right temperature range, it has the right rainfall. I must have seen it there, because I travel a lot by train growing up. And so I did a lot of research on it when I was working on other projects, film and TV and other things in India. And I developed this little manual of information. And I said, if I find this plant, I'm going to try and make this wonderful drink. And when I moved to Goa in 2004, I had this file, and I just found a couple of people who knew about botanicals in India. And we went on a trip exploring in the Deccan, which is right across the hills. And within a day we found these plants. And I carted samples back and started experimenting. And next thing you know, I was making like really high quality agave spirit. We don't call it tequila. It's a reserved word for Mexico. And in 2004 is when I started doing this, and then I experimented for many years, and then it just occurred to me that maybe, you know, with the growing markets in Asia, that India could become a really good competitor to Mexico. We'd be the only country producing this outside of Mexico. And so I started a company, and I got all my friends from abroad, maybe even the kind of people who knew that I worked on interesting projects and funded it myself. I front-ended the whole thing. I also wanted to show youngsters like you in India that a project like this could be done in a way that was environmentally friendly. So this industry in India is known for being a very polluting industry. So I wanted to develop some really good techniques for cleaning and using the waste from our micro distillery. I also wanted to show that you could do a project in India without pandering to the other major problem in India, which is corruption. And the field, Alcoba field, is extremely corrupt. I mean, down to officials, everybody's on the take. But I wanted to show that somebody could fight all this and do it without taking bribes. And that's what I set out to do. And people thought I was mad. And I am mad. I mean, to attempt to do that. It took me about twice as long as it would take anybody else to bribe their way through. But here I am. I'm finally in the market and making waves with these products. When we are being written about in newspapers, I would suggest if you're interested in the story behind this company, it may inspire you to come back to India or not come back to India, to do something in India, because India is a place where there's a huge market and you might find opportunities here that you wouldn't find in the countries that you come from. So I'm using this as a way to encourage you, even if you have bad vibes about the way things are done in India, to know that at least one company is there that has tried to do things right. Read about us on the web. You'll find us under www.desmondg.com. Desmond is my name, and the brand is named Desmond G because I've done everything for it. The JI is used for like Gandhi Ji and all that. I mean, that's the serious, respectful way of calling a name. But I use it in a fun way because Desmond doesn't go with G. Right? Gandhi Ji I can understand, but when Obama came to India, they call him Obama Ji, just for fun. So I'm Desmond G. Right? The product is Desmond G. So I encourage you to read about it, and I'll certainly answer some questions. But you see how you can move fields. I mean, you all have described that you're doing something or the other, but you're still young. There are numerous opportunities that will come your way. You follow your ideas, your passions. I've been through about 5 or 6 different fields. I trained as a scientist, engineer, filmmaker, computer scientist, and guess what I'm doing? I think that's enough.
Thank you so much, Desmond. The next speaker for today's function is a famous journalist and writer. After 20 years of working in the field of journalism, communications and graphic designs, Anuradh Sen Gupta has returned to his first love, writing, since he moved to Goa in 2006. So far, he has authored a couple of books in a children's adventure series, a graphic guidebook on environmental matters, and a sprinkling of short stories in various anthologies. He is currently working on a chronicle of his travels by road around India with his wife Anjali and their dogs, 6 of them as of now. Interspersed with all this, he enjoys setting, conducting and participating in quizzes and is a founder member of Goa's Sunday Evening Quiz Club. Anuradh Sen Gupta, and I can't pronounce him wrong, will speak on the written word, booked solid, essentially looking at how writing and publishing has begun to flourish in India. We welcome you and
Alright, I had a bit of a problem with my name, it's Anirudh. That's fine, it's not a problem. But yeah, because almost everyone can't pronounce it, people call me Annie for short. And sometimes that's a little confusing for people because they don't expect to see a nanny who has a long beard and moustache and everything, right? Right, that's how it is. Alright. So yeah, when I started thinking about this talk, I put together a lot of stuff about the publishing industry and how it works and writing. But I realized that may not really be something that would be terribly interested at this stage of time. So what I do instead is I like to hear a little more about you guys. I like to hear what your experiences have been and maybe we take it from there. So if I remember right, I heard there's one journalism student here, right? One of you? Yeah, you're a journalism student. So you enjoy writing, I guess. I mean, that's what you're into. Anyone else here who enjoys writing? I mean, just for themselves, yeah? What kind of stuff? Great, okay. Anyone else? Okay. Yes, great. What do you write? I mean, do you write stories? Do you write blogs? What do you do?
In South Africa, I'm very involved in youth development.
Okay, just hang on. Stand up.
In South Africa, I'm very involved in youth development, and I've written a book on youth development.
That's very interesting. It's been published in by a publisher there.
It's good, and it's going to be used by our local Thailand.
Oh, fantastic. Great. That's lovely. How about you?
I mostly just write fiction for myself, but I've been working on a book for teenagers called Chegated. And yeah, it's mostly just teenage comedy romance.
Very nice. Very interesting. How about you? Sorry about you.
I write a lot of satire for my school newspaper, and I just started a blog, so hopefully that goes well.
That's nice. Are you doing any kind of a write-up on this trip that you guys are taking? Are you writing about this trip?
Yeah, I'm blogging
Yeah?
every day.
You're blogging every day? Oh, that's fantastic. Maybe at the end of this session you can give us your blog address and kind of put it on. Okay. See, all of you, I mean, you're all from various parts of the world. Suriname, Fiji, Portugal, South Africa. I think these are some of the places I remember. I don't remember what else was there. Can I just sort of understand a little bit about your stories? Could those who are from Fiji please just stand up? Please, please, please. Please. Thank you. Okay. So do you guys, I mean, does any of you know where your folks were from in India? Most of you do? Do you know how they got to Fiji? Okay, great, fantastic. I'd like to hear some stories, please. Tell us how your folks got to Fiji, please.
Actually, I'm the fourth generation who's visiting India. The only information that I have about my ancestors is through my grandparents. I know that they were forced to go into the ship of the pyramid to the indentured labor system, and I inhaled from Uttar Pradesh. I think somewhere around Bihar. That's what